What was the specific thing that you thought this would be good at over and above automating the process? Was there a particular outcome you were trying to kind of get to?
If you are processing so many mortgages and like if you're growing your market share in a growing market, then this means there's an upside if you do things faster with the same amount of people. So our main goal is like to process faster. We launched this in the Netherlands and like we're moving this to Germany. We are right now around like 30 minutes away from instantly approving a loan in Germany. So think about it. As a bank, you're going to deploy a technology, go back to 2022, and this technology will talk to your clients unfiltered. What is our risk appetite? That was the question.
Testing tends to be, a big part of these kind of projects.
In our corporate DNA for the last couple of years, like we have a philosophy. So we have to find the value first, and like we have to work hard to deliver that. We said it's either in mortgages where we have a huge business advantage, or we shouldn't really try that there because like doing it somewhere else with less importance has less value.
When it comes to actually solving problems and delivering value, it is all about the best tools for the job. This conversation is with Bahadir Yilmaz, who is the Chief Analytics Officer at ING, one of the largest banks in Europe, based in the Netherlands. And Bahadir has tons of experience in AI. He runs AI at ING and is currently responsible for overseeing over 114 different AI projects. ING has had a very organic approach to AI. There was a carte blanche ban across the organisation in 2022 when Gen AI first hit the scene. And over that time, through very diligent and methodical processes, they have proven the value of AI safely at scale, culminating in these 114 projects now where they are scaling AI right across the organisation. The one in particular that we discuss is all about mortgage processing and agentic AI in mortgages, aiming to shrink the mortgage processing time from over a week down to days, and in fact, over time, down to almost instantly. It is very innovative stuff. It's at the bleeding edge. We discuss challenges, opportunities, and how to get it right, how to get AI right at scale. So without further ado, here is Bahadir Yilmaz from ING on the VUX podcast. All right, ready to rumble. Hello there, Bahadir. Welcome to the podcast. How are you?
I'm doing very well, thanks. How are you?
I'm all right. You are absolutely giving me a run for our money in terms of your setup there. That is an absolutely unbelievable studio you have there.
Yeah, our CEO hosts like a video event every quarter here and announces our quarterly results. So it's the same setup, and I'm privileged to be here.
It's brilliant. And I'll tell you what, ING have got a very, a very tasteful eye. I don't know how much ING was involved in the Netherlands World Cup training top. I don't know if you've seen it, but it is probably the best football shirt that I have probably ever seen. So I don't know if you guys had any involvement in the design, but I can see by the setup there that ING probably does have a bit of a taste for design, it seems.
I don't know if you're involved, but like it was really something tasteful. I've also noticed it.
Yeah, I've been trying to get hold.
I just have the jersey, not the trainer. So
yeah. I've been trying to get hold of the jersey, but they just sell out straight away. So there's a re-release happening soon, I hear. So maybe I'll be interested.
We'll find one for you.
Yeah, absolutely. Nice one. Well, thank you for joining us. Welcome to the podcast. I'm really, really interested to hear about your kind of agentic mortgages use case, because ING is a company that I'm sure a lot of our listeners are more than familiar with. And of course, we've kind of seen ING being around. Lots of people from ING were at our conference and stuff like that. So well aware that ING has been investing in AI and conversational AI for a long time. But curious to learn a little bit more about, some of your recent developments and recent learnings and stuff like that. So maybe for the sake of context, to get us kind of started, it'd be useful to hear a bit about yourself, Bahadir, a bit about your role and kind of where you sit in terms of AI at ING.
Yeah. This is Bahadir Yilmaz, and I'm the Chief Analytics Officer of ING. I run an organization called ING Analytics, which has around 600 people that are focusing purely on AI. And these are like product managers, data scientists, data engineers in different countries. And like we work to create value for our customers, our stakeholders. Me personally, I studied engineering. I'm originally from Turkey. I have an MBA, and then I basically started working at ING. At ING, I always did digital transformation with new technologies. So my first project actually at ING in 2012 was like the first mobile banking app, and like I was designing like journeys for that project. Then there was this term big data, and I was optimizing the ATM locations with big data, which was replaced by machine learning in 2014-15. But early days, like you didn't have this term. Then I was involved in robotics. In 2017, I moved to the Netherlands, and I worked in the establishment of a central AI-focused organization. And I'm in that organization ever since. If you talk about organization is called ING Analytics, as I said. And like since 2017, ING has someone who is in charge of AI. And like right now, for the last 3 years, it's me. But this gives us a bit of a unique opportunity to look at all the technologies from a bit of a distance and evaluate what works where the best. Right now, this year, we are working on 114 initiatives across the globe and across the organization that involves one shape or form AI. That delivers value. These are conversational banking use cases. These are insights. These are autonomous marketing, complaints analysis, know your customer, anti-money laundering, mortgages, and this is just not stopping. This is accelerating. At ING, we take AI very seriously as a force that like helps us in delivering superior service and value to our customers.
Brilliant. And 114, did you say there?
Yes.
Yeah. So 114 different use cases. And when you talk about AI these days, are you talking about AI generally, as you alluded to at the beginning? You went through big data, machine learning, then Gen AI. So like AI is a large kind of category, if you like. Are you referring to AI generally, or are you referring to 114 Gen AI specific projects that are going on?
For this specific 114, I'm taking a bit of a broader landscape. It's more machine learning and Gen AI, not like logistic regression or like simple models. It's more the complex, uncertain side of things. But we don't want to take a stance towards AI that everything needs to be done with Gen AI, because like there are certain problems, especially in banking, that is tubular data. And for that type of data, you really need to use like machine learning, deep learning, neural networks type of techniques that generates value for that specific problem. And there are some problems that you need to do like with Gen AI, and like that is the only tool that is available for that specific issue. So we want to take a broader lens, because like that's how we can capture and manage value. I, to be honest, like don't know like how many of them are like machine learning and how many of them are Gen AI, but like the big initiatives are also coming from both sides. So like there are like big initiatives in terms of financial and like customer value with machine learning that are eliminating certain operations, but there are also like bigger ones on Gen AI. But I have to admit, like Gen AI is accelerating, and it's going to take a bigger proportion going forward.
Yeah, I'm glad to hear that, because I think that, you know, there is this kind of like Gen AI fever, I think, that's kicking around. And I think it's important for people to understand that when it comes to actually solving problems and delivering value, it is all about the best tools for the job. And, you know, traditional machine learning has a fantastic place in businesses. I just think it's been lost a little bit because Gen AI gets a lot of the limelight. So I think it's just important not to kind of forget that. So I'm glad to hear you kind of you know, investing still in both sides, which is great. Maybe it'd be interesting to kind of touch on. So we'll get to the agentic mortgages kind of area, but in terms of your experimentation with Gen AI specifically from 2022, ING has had conversational AI in place for a long time. Where did the kind of initial experimentation with Gen AI begin, and what problems were you thinking at the time that it is best suited to solving?
We built a robust risk management strategy that gave us a big regulated institution the license to think bigger about like AI. And then we said last summer, we were actually in our management gathering where top 200 managers of the bank like were getting together, and like we said, okay, like this is too limited for now. We found how we can scale this further. We need to scale this. We cannot do it everywhere. We have to put a lot of like rules and conditions around it, but like this is gonna be big. So then starting from mid 2025, we started opening it up. And then we said, okay, like we need to try more agentic. We need to give almost everyone a copilot tool within the organization. AI needs to go first in our thinking about like every single problem. It doesn't necessarily have to be only like client facing or embedded software, but like somebody within the organization, when they have a problem, when they have a question, they should first start asking, can I do this better with AI? Is there a solution for me to solve this problem without adding more resources, more people than by adding more AI? And we accelerated that. Right now we are at the point where we have 42,000 people have access to AI, which is right now 2/3 of the bank. We have 64,000 employees. We have a portfolio of 114 initiatives where, again, like I think like half of them are Gen AI based on like what I can judge from here. And like these are variety of like use cases. And there are a lot of like new creative use cases that are coming up on top of these 114. So like we are also adding more and more use cases. Sometimes we are adding use cases that we weren't even aware of before. So like certain things that we didn't really understand like it was possible. Somebody in the organization tries that and like we say, it's a good idea, let's scale this further. So we are at that phase like where it's really accelerating. But of course, like there are always pros and cons. The cons are a bit the cost side, sustainability side, whether we have enough people in the organization that can maintain these solutions. So like these are the additional concerns that are coming up. But this is a journey.
Interesting. So you mentioned there that you had a kind of a Gen AI in the chatbot around about 2023 when there was one of the first initial experiments. Can you talk us through then where did the agentic mortgages project emerge from, and what was the initial kind of goal in trying to explore that?
We didn't add the agentic mortgages or mortgages at all in the first 2 or 5 experiments, because like if you look at like mortgages is a very complex process. Like when you apply for a mortgage, there are multiple things that needs to be assessed by a lot of knowledgeable people. And these data needs to be compared against like your policies, your government regulations, like housing situation. And they are not, when you look at it like immediately, they are not really suitable for an LLM to assess. Like at least that wasn't possible in 2023-24. They were much more capable in handling small context texts than something that is going to be suitable for mortgages. By the end of 2024, but mostly first half 2025, this agentic concept was very popular. It was everywhere. First, the models got bigger, so like more and more complex, big context models were published, like by all vendors, also the provider that we work with. But also this agentic framework and like the concepts architecture became a bit more mature. A bit more mature is a bit of a overstatement because like all these things are like less than 2 years old. So it's but they became a bit more emerging. Then we saw an opportunity. We said like if you put a big model and a framework of agentic together, they will probably be able to digitize things that we weren't able to digitize before. And let me take a step back. If you are getting a loan right now, buy now, pay later, or consumer finance, you don't need agentic because like you can get your data from open bank, PSD2, your existing bank. You can share a lot of information via your government in like structured data form. And majority of the banks are becoming better and better in assessing that within less than 5 minutes and like approving your loan. So like that loan journey has already been digitized without AI or agentic at all. Then let's think about the other end of the spectrum in the financial institutions. Mortgages, SME lending, wholesale banking lending, these are very document heavy processes, and there is not that much of a possibility to make them digital with the existing technology. Enter agentic into this discussion. This gives you the right to imagine a process that is straight through as a consumer finance, but in a complex product as mortgages. That's why we picked mortgages. We said this technology is very powerful. If it's really an opportunity for us. It needs to work in mortgages because we are in top 3 in Europe in mortgage processing. So this is like a very commercially important area for us. And if we can make it digitally available for our clients, this is going to be a great value for everyone. It's going to be great value for clients. It's going to be great value for us because like the faster you are in mortgages market, the more advantage you have. It's going to lower the cost. So like all around the board, this was a great opportunity. That's why we picked agentic in mortgages as our first priority in agentic.
Right. And when you say ING was in the top 3 in terms of mortgage processing, are you talking about kind of like turnaround time from application to decision or something like that?
Volume in Europe.
All right. So you produce the third largest amount of mortgage applications in Europe. Yeah. Interesting.
It sometimes like moves like of course like this is the recent data, but like we are in high ranks there.
Yeah, significant either way. So what problem were you trying to solve in that respect then? Was it that you're trying to turn around them faster? Is it that you're trying to kind of have a better quality in terms of approvals? Or what was the specific thing that you thought this would be good at over and above automating the process? Was there a particular outcome you were trying to kind of get to?
When you're talking about AI in general, one of the misconceptions is like you always think about like cost out, and like everybody thinks all the initiatives are for productivity and cost. And in this business case, there is no cost out element. Like that's the beauty, because like if you are processing so many mortgages and like if you're growing your market share in a growing market, then this means there's an upside if you do things faster with the same amount of people. So our main goal is like to process faster, to get to our clients more quickly, lower the turnaround times, and making sure that like whenever things are not first time right, whenever there's an iteration, you can get back to the brokers or the clients as quickly as possible, because any time that is waiting is also a possibility to also not to convert. So like you drop out from the funnel. So that's why commercially it's very important to be faster in the market. And in mortgages, we launched this in the Netherlands and like we're moving this to Germany. We are right now around like 30 minutes away from instantly approving a loan in Germany. But I extrapolating it like in 2-3 years time, like we will see more and more near real time, near digital mortgages processing in almost all the markets thanks to agentic.
Wow. As opposed to how long would it typically take without that?
Depends, but like weeks at least.
Wow.
It's a long process with a lot of back and forth and like a lot of educated people looking at that file. In most of the cases, especially in US, lawyers are involved as well. Like for special cases, you need to evaluate certain situations about like certain businesses or certain types of clients. There are in the Netherlands a lot of considerations around like the building's status, so like you need to also assess that separately. This is a very, very textually intense context.
And also presumably because of the amount of volume that you have, there's presumably a lot of idle time as well. Applications waiting to be looked at type of thing, as well as the actual processing of them as well. Would that be fair or not?
There also, like you cannot really scale your workforce as quickly as you want to be, because like these are all handled like by very experienced people. So the more efficient you can make these experienced people, the better is the business for you.
Absolutely. So could you talk us through then how this sort of works? So you mentioned a number of times that there's a bunch of different documents you've got to look at. Presumably there's then some reasoning that needs to happen and some decision making that needs to happen to assess whether or not the applicant is worthy of a mortgage or what have you. I wonder if you can talk us through like what's the trigger, what's the agent actually doing, and what's the result. Does that make sense?
I'll simplify a bit, just to make it a bit more understandable. Like in any credit application, but also especially in mortgages, you have 3 elements. One element is the client's data, so their declaration. So what they declared, that's what is the purpose of that loan, what is their status, that's one. A confirmation of that declaration, so like you extract information from that document and like you make sure that like they are right, there's no typo, maybe there's no misunderstanding, so like what you extracted from that, and your policies. So you compare these 3 to each other. That's basically what you're doing. I'm oversimplifying right now. And what we built is a bit of an offline asynchronous system, agentic system. Whenever there's an application that takes that data, looks at the policy, and that policy was translated into agent logic. So like into planning, into certain prompts, not as rule by rule. So like it's not as descriptive as like you would do in a workflow, but more, okay, this is your goal. These are the rules. These are the conditions. This is what we are trying to verify. These were the previous examples. These are the most common errors. So a bit like a workplace instruction that you're giving to a new employee, we gave the new instructions to the agent. And then when there's a trigger is like an application from a broker. There's a system that evaluates all the rules and all the descriptive things that we can check. But in around 70-80% of the cases, there is an exception. And these exceptions are things that needs to be verified by experts. This can be a condition about the house. This can be a condition about the employment. There are different things. I'm not going to go into the details. But then this agentic system takes that information, extracts the relevant data points from the applicant's file, compares it to the recent policy, and comes back with a suggestion. And that suggestion is still like provided to our expert. So like it's human in the loop. And then our expert reviews it. They have also targets for agents for the first time, right? So like agents also needs to perform at a certain quality level. And then that decision is communicated to brokers or to the clients directly. This means the certain things that you would do in the mid-office, back-office are done automatically, asynchronously by the agents in parallel. And this needs to be done a bit rule by rule. So like you cannot really say, okay, like this is the file, this is the application, these are the policies, do your thing. It's not like that, because like you have to build all these like workplace instructions to really train your system how to evaluate that. But also you need to build all the testing and eval, and like you also have to prove that like this is safe. You have to set up all the monitoring around it. So it's not as simple as like, hey, I downloaded Claude and like I'm adding a coworker there that is going to do this file. No, it's actually a big IT project that requires a lot of like fine tuning.
Interesting. So the application comes in from the broker. The agent will pick up the application, has a look at the application, has a look at the documents that the user's provided, compares that to your policy, which presumably is things around affordability or what have you, credit ratings or whatever it might be. And then it makes an assessment and says, based on everything I know, based on everything I'm instructed to do, this mortgage should be approved or declined, and then suggests that to the person who ultimately makes the decision. Is that correct? Am I understanding that right?
That's not entirely true, because like it's not about affordability or credit underwriting. These are more operational tasks at this point, like right. Where we like it's more about like certain conditions, certain like additional information that we might require. Underwriting is done completely in a separate system. So right. The credit agent here doesn't make any decisions on the credit application itself. Like it's more an operational help. That is looking at like certain conditions around the client's file and like coming up with recommendations related to that. So it's more operational than like risk management.
Right, I'm with you. So would that be things like, for example, I don't know, the person is missing their proof of address, or is there anything missing from the application? Is it those type of things? Like, is this thing complete?
Like the client has like a certain years to retirement, then you need additional proof of their income. Like maybe like you would ask like additional documents about like their debt status, all these things. So like those are like a bit more operational tasks.
Okay, I'm with you.
Like, and then, like maybe like this is important to clarify. Where whenever you want to have an underwriting system or a decision, LLMs are not like the most suitable, most stable technologies that are out there. So like there are certain biases within them. So for anything related to underwriting, we still work with good old machine learning. Mm-hmm. Machine learning systems, like you can build explainability on top of that. Like you can do testing, you can do thresholds. There are a lot of things that are better in tubular data rather than like large language models, as I said.
Yeah, 100%. So then, would I be correct? I'm just trying to make sure I understand it properly. Would I be correct in saying then that the agent, as its primary kind of job, is to assess whether the application is complete and relevant based on the person applying. Is that
and
correct?
The policy, yes.
And the policy, right? Fair enough. That makes sense. And then that provides is the output essentially a yes or no sort of thing. So when it gets escalated to the person who ultimately does like the underwriting and makes the decision, it saves them the time of having to do that themselves, so that they don't have to go back to the applicant and request more documents and all that kind of stuff. Is that correct?
It's yes, or I need to see this additional information. Then this additional conditions or like letter, whatever you call, either goes directly to the client via our experts, or goes to the broker. But we can also imagine, like in a couple of years' time, this becomes an interaction that you have through your mobile app.
Yeah.
That's I think a bit like what I'm trying to come. It's not the decision itself, but like to come to a decision, you need a lot of operations, and that's where generative AI, agentic AI really shines.
Yeah, that makes sense. How do you think about testing something like that then? Because you've got a lot of variation in terms of the different conditions, the different types of applicants, the different documents. There's a lot of variability in there. So how do you go about understanding how you should test something like that?
That's I would say proprietary information of ING, because like, why I would say, like, I will explain like exactly how it is, but
yeah.
When you're dealing with generative AI, like you get a lot of technologies, but you don't get the knowledge around like how you should build these tests and quality control mechanisms.
Yeah.
That is what you need to build as a bank to make sure that like you are able to manage the risks.
Yeah.
Take it to the previous example, the conversational banking, conversational AI, the chatbots. When we were in the journey to launch the first chatbots, we had within the bank a long conversation about like how we should do the risk management, because that didn't exist. So think about it. As a bank, you're going to deploy a technology, go back to 2022, and this technology will talk to your clients unfiltered. What is our risk appetite? That was the question. We don't have any risk appetite. We haven't had that discussion. So like we started having a discussion with our risk colleagues, and like they were also like very collaborative and like also progressive. We agreed on a couple of principles that were okay, and like we discussed that. We said, okay, we should never see discriminative language. That our appetite should be zero, and like if we see game over. So like we should make sure that like there is a zero tolerance for that. That's okay. That's a condition. Well, we said we cannot eliminate hallucinations, because like we know that these models are hallucinating, especially when the information in our websites are vague or like they are not available. Hallucinating is not available, and like we cannot test for millions of cases that will happen in real life. So we should have a risk appetite. So what should be our risk appetite was the discussion that we had for that specific case. Then we built a mechanism which we called scalable Q&A, quality assurance. That became a bit our thing. So like we started discussing everything around scalable Q&A. We are not discussing the technology of building a chatbot anymore. We are discussing how do we make sure that like this is safe to use going forward. And building this was a real research project within the bank. And this was something that we spent significant time. This happened also for agentic mortgages. Industry best practices doesn't exist. Like there are certain things and like certain libraries, certain observability principles. In one of the meetings, like we discussed what should be our observability technology, and somebody said, hey, like this is the market standard and like we should be using it. And like we looked at it, like that technology company was less than 1.5 years old. So how can it be the market standard? So I'm a bit maybe pushing a point to make a point. But what I'm trying to say is like some of these things around like the safety of AI are really new, very novel. And also these are pretty much very important for financial institutions and the banks, and not that much important for maybe startups and like also all these companies that are pushing for it. So there is a bit of a gap. Mortgages, we had this discussion not only at the technology level, but like how are we going to prove that like we are not exposing ourselves to unnecessary operational or credit risk? That was one of the main questions, apart from all sorts of like GDPR and other regulations that we know how to control. We had to build a golden data set for 400 applications that represents different stages of the mortgage, the different types of like mortgage applications and different questions that we might face. But the problem was not really putting that data set, because like what you need is all the states throughout, let's say, a mortgage application takes like 2 weeks. You need to have snapshots of every stage that mortgage application went through. So you don't need a static data set like with binary labels. You need the movement of that mortgage application throughout 2 weeks time. And that's a massive data set. You need to know within that 2 weeks whether customers paid their like debt to other banks or not. Because like what happens is you don't allow the customer go through with their mortgage application, but throughout that 2 week time, they make the payment to the other bank and they come back to you. So you need to be able to make sure that like your mortgage agent is able to be tested based on those fluctuations in your data. Then you build that data set and like you test all your system iteration after iteration to that golden set. And again, this is not something that you would read in like the textbooks, because like these concepts needs to be built from almost scratch. So building those like testing mechanisms, safety mechanisms, quality assurance mechanisms are a big part of these projects, and they are new and they are just becoming a bit more mature, I would say.
That's interesting. What was the biggest challenge of this then, in terms of taking, this agentic mortgages approach and taking it to production? I think testing is often understood, firstly, and what's the word I'm looking for? Underloved from the point of view of there's a lot of manual testing being done. It's quite difficult to really scale manual testing in terms of making sure you get enough coverage and you're testing enough scenarios and things like that. So I think that testing tends to be, a big part of these kind of projects. But what are the kind of like, from doing that, what were the biggest challenges, would you say, that you had to overcome in order to get this live?
To be able to do something like this earlier than the pack in production is challenging from a couple of aspects. So the first aspect is like you're always working at the edge. What I mean by that, you're relying on a technology that your vendor is going to make generally available in February, and you are planning a release in March. There is a technology release that you expect, and like you expect to use it in 3 months' time in production. They change how the MCP server is going to be connected, and like that has a huge dependency on like how you're building your application. So these are not really mature technologies. Actually, like the term agentic framework is, I think, less than 2 years old. Because like it was, I think, in the early days of like 2024. This is not an excuse, because like if you want to innovate and be first, like this is what you should do. You cannot really just make an excuse that like nothing is available and then you wait and like you're the last in the pack. To be first in these type of things, like you have to really have the ability to be able to utilize these things by doing your work and like really accepting the risk whenever you need to accept, and mitigate whenever you need to mitigate. That's one. The second thing is you're almost building a new application layer on top of your existing application layer, and they are not sometimes directly compatible. So sometimes like you don't have the APIs that you need to connect. Sometimes they don't support API. Sometimes like they're in a different format. So there's lots of traffic to really communicate these systems to each other. So what I'm gonna say, you really need to have an appetite to work at the edge, but you also need to be able to deal with complexity. And you can only justify these type of investments in early days in a product, in a market, in a domain that you are really powerful, or you're challenging. So these are not like really easy projects.
And how did you kind of go about selling this internally when you have an area which, as we said, is it's high, one of the highest in terms of volumes in terms of mortgages, and you want to then take this bleeding edge technology and embed it into an incredibly important part of the business. How do you go about having that discussion? Did you approach it initially as like an experiment, like we don't know if this is actually going to work, so we're just going to try and see? Or did you approach it from the point of view of actually we are confident we can shave a load of processing time here, and therefore we have an idea of what the outcome is going to be, and let's go? Was it an experiment, or was it almost like a target, if that makes sense?
In our corporate DNA for the last couple of years, like we have a philosophy. So we have to find the value first, and like we have to work hard to deliver that. So that means the first experiment, as I explained in 2022, was a client-facing chatbot, which nobody had. But we said this is either client-facing or we are kidding ourselves. So like we cannot really do, let's assist the employees, let's do it internally, let's do something else. Like we have to see like whether we can take this to the clients. The same conversation happened here again. And we said it's either in mortgages where we have a huge business advantage, or we shouldn't really try that there. Because like doing it somewhere else, like with less importance, has less value, and then like the whole organization will stop supporting that objective. They will challenge why that other priority was set. They will always say this doesn't move the needle. We should have done like mortgages. There was almost a consensus, anonymous like decision within the organization that this should be mortgages. Followed up by execution via conversational banking. So that's a bit like how we prioritize things. We always take calculated risks and set a bit of ambitious target on where we want to use these technologies.
That's interesting. What are some of the things that perhaps have you had to change or do differently, or maybe different skills that you've needed in order to do this? Was it kind of like because you had a bit of experience beforehand and all that kind of stuff that you were already sort of set up for it, or did you have to change the way that you kind of operate as a team in order to do this? Was there anything you had to change?
A lot needs to change. As I said, I run an organization which has 600 experts, and like you can say, like they're relatively the closest to the AI world in the bank. When we did this agentic mortgages implementation in March, we finalized it last March. We said, okay, how many experts do we have? Like how many people can we put in the other agentic domains? And we were only able to pick a bit more than 10 people like within our organization, because like this is new and you need to spend time, effort, and attention. Of course, like these people are very capable people, but like they maybe don't have the time, like the trainings available for them. This needs a bit of a curation. Then this is only the organization that is in my control, and like they are very savvy with AI and data science, and there are broader implications for the rest of the organization. If you spend all your career like doing front-end development, maybe it's not that easy for you to do the switch to agentic development. But that doesn't necessarily mean that like you cannot do it. Just like we have to put the effort, we have to put the system to make that transition. What I see is the last 3-4 years brought a lot of new technologies, new terminologies, cloud only, cloud first attitude that is very new for a lot of people, including myself, by the way. So I like you need to learn a lot of like new technologies. You need to understand like what this means, like for yourself, for your business. So I would say like we're at an age of like continuous change and learning, and like without that, like it will be a very hard decade going ahead.
Absolutely, yeah. I think that the thing is when you're doing something for the first time, you can't expect to have 600 people who've got the experience, isn't it? So you kind of have to learn as you go. And how do you think about scaling that then? So because every team that kind of, presumably, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but presumably, if given that this works, there is largely, or the chances are that there's going to be lots of other areas among ING where this type of use case and this type of technology is going to be very useful. Therefore, as you start to think about rolling this stuff out further, you're going to need more teams, you're going to need more people, you're going to need more skills. How do you kind of think about scaling that sort of stuff internally, knowing that there's a good group of people who haven't done it before?
Everybody is very excited, and like we've already identified what we want to do in the next 18 months. So we have I wouldn't say a definitive list, but like we have a clear idea of like where we want to do and why we want to do this. We just have limitations around like number of people that are able to deliver these type of projects. We are doing a big reskilling program, but also we are hiring as we speak. We expect to do around 10 to 12 new agentic domains by the end of 2028. So like we are very busy in planning, but also in executing.
What's your thoughts about the future of this stuff?
What I use in my discussions, like with people around me, I a bit call this like ex machina syndrome. Like people expect AI to be the ex machina that is coming to the system and solving all the problems, and like that's not the case. And like why? Like it's not gonna be as smooth as like you anticipate, or like you just stated, quoting other people. I think the main reason is like we forget like how much friction there in the tech integration. So like it's not a seamless integrated system between the machines and like humans. We still have a lot of systems with old and new way of communicating with each other. There are still trillions of systems that doesn't have API connectivity, yet alone like agentic connectivity, and also agents make mistakes. Is it possible to have like companies that are fully agentic? Of course, yes. I believe in that vision. Will there be like really incredible examples that we will see, and like we will see, wow, like they created like with one machine like $1 trillion of value. I think these are all possible. So I believe in that story. Will every company become that? Like will majority of the companies be able to do that transformation? I don't think so. First, like there is still the atoms world. So not everything is information technologies. Like there are still like a lot of like physical things that are being produced. But more on that, like we a bit think too highly about like society's interest in AI. Yes, like 800 million people are using ChatGPT on a daily basis, like since last year. But still, that means like 6 billion people did not really try it in their lifetime. It will take longer time. It will have tremendous opportunities somewhere in the organization. It will not have any changes in certain parts of the organization. Some organizations will adopt it, but we cannot really generalize it. It's not going to be as black and white as like people tend it to be.
Brilliant. That was a great answer. And finally, is there anything that you can share in terms of outcomes and results? Appreciate you probably can't get into detail there, but I mean, you obviously started this process on agentic mortgages trying to reduce processing time to be able to, process more mortgages and continue to grow. Like, is there anything you can share with us in terms of the outcomes that you've seen and the results that you've had? Like, did you accomplish what you wanted to accomplish with it?
We hit all the goals of the project. We cut our turnaround time by 1 day. So like the applications after AI was introduced in the mortgage process are done in like one less day. It's still a couple of days because like you do a lot of back and forth between clients and brokers. So like it's still not as instant as we want it to be, but it's a step towards instant. I think we will be able to see instant mortgages within the next couple of years. I think it's definitely within the reach. We just have to keep on this pace and development going forward, and like we will get there. From a productivity perspective, we also see improvements in all these metrics, but the clear goal is like really trying to make it instant within a reasonable time frame.
Brilliant. Maybe you can come back when either when that's happened, or maybe when there's a few of these 114 projects a little bit further down the line, and you can share us a little bit about what's going on there.
I would love to. Actually, next week we are launching in the Netherlands our advanced conversational banking AI, and it will have ability to execute with speech and like with chat. Like it will have much more capabilities compared to our current chatbot. It's going to be I would say groundbreaking. So maybe
nice.
We can have a session on that one as well.
Let's do it. That sounds brilliant. That sounds right up my street. Absolutely. Well, Bahadir, thank you so much for your time. It's been really, really appreciated. And hopefully we'll speak again.
Thank you.
Thanks now. Bye.